In the previous video, I did say that I was planning to make a haul video after. However, I decided not to, so we can skip to the good bits. Welcome, it's Alex here, and today we are gonna be taking a look at Xiii Final Fantasy VII Remake Red 13, also known as Nanaki. Let's check out the box first. Now the box is a little different in shape or size, as the content inside is a non-bipedal character. Here's a look at the top of the box, and here's a look at the bottom. We have Red 13 here at the front, ready to pounce at ya. Here's a look at the inside. However, I already took Red 13 out. And a little something about Red 13 right here on the left side of its window flap. Then on both sides are the same. It says Final Fantasy VII Remake Xiii Red 13. And at the back, full product shot of Red 13 and some action poses. Now let's go ahead and check out Red 13, as it doesn't come with any accessories at all. And it's a bummer. Out of the box, I really like how Xiii figures feel, specifically Nanaki here, similar to what I've said with Sephiroth. There's that quality premium build to it. And looking at Nanaki's head sculpt, I really like how his hair looks all the way down to his back. It's been sculpted nicely, and every hair strand and the dark brushing adds a more realistic look to it. Nanaki's face is well detailed. There are a lot of things going on with this figure, not just in the head sculpt but in the overall section of his body. Every single detail is here. The scar on his right eye, the red paints on his cheek, the tribal paints on his head beside his mohawk, the braids on his pigtails, as well as the feathers and the materials on his collar. By the way, this collar right here is sculpted and not a floating piece, just so you know. And the thing that stands out to me the most are his piercings, as they are actual hoops that are pierced in his ear to add a more realistic detail. The textured fur all over his body is very well done, with some added dark brushing on the outer part, and then with some light shading on his chest going down to his abdominal area. The applications for his tribal paints on his upper legs is very nice, and the same goes for the paints on his hind legs. The details of his leg bands are awesome. I love that. His nails and paws are also painted very nicely. Ultimately, I really like the look of the translucent flame on his tail, which would really look good if you know some lighting tricks for photography. Now, as for the articulation, I got a little too overwhelmed and amazed at the same time as to how much articulation does this guy has, since I am not used to handling a complexly articulated quadrupedal figure, as I do not have the Advent Children Red 13 or any action figures of similar articulation. So starting off with Nanaki's head articulation, you can go ahead and remove his head, and by looking inside, you can actually see that there is a knob inside his eyeball in which you can move his pupil on where you want him to look, which is a very welcome addition to his already great overall articulation. This is actually the first time that I've had a figure with such articulation, as I've seen them on Revoltech figures here on YouTube, and that's quite something. That's genuinely nice. Red's got jaw articulation, and here in the initial part of his neck, not does it only rotate, but it has a tiny amount of tilting. And then here in the hind part of his neck articulation, it doesn't have any rotation, but it hinges up and down. Moving on to Red's frontal legs, both of them rotates forward and back, and can be raised or spread out this much, and both have drop down articulation for additional freedom of movement. It's got elbow joints that can bend this much. Moving below, at first I thought that Red's leg bands are floating pieces, however they are not, but I really don't mind at all. And For the wrist articulation, we have the standard hinge and rotating movements, as well as toe hinges. For the upper part of his abdominal section, it allows for a forward and back movement, as well as rotation. And same goes for the lower abdominal section or waist section. It can move forward and back and also rotates. For the hind legs, it's got that ratcheted articulation for forward and backward movements, and a ratchet articulation for doing the splits. And then on top of the elbow, wrist, and toe joints here in the hind leg is an additional articulation similar to that of a knee joint. And ultimately, Red 13's tail has a bendy wire inside for some additional dynamic poses. And by the way, Red's wrist joints can hold his weight if you rotate the wrist joints facing on the side, and this will prevent Red's wrist from bending due to the weight of his body. For measuring Red, it all depends on how high you make your Red stand, but on average, he stands at 6 inches tall in his natural stance. But the most important thing, I guess, is his length, and so he is almost 9 inches from the tip of his mohawk to his butt. And his tail is an additional 9 inches, which makes Red 13 a total of about 18 inches in length. And here's how he compares to Player Xiii, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Xiii, and to Xiii from the Marvel Legends line. So there's our quick look for Red 13, also known as Nanaki. And overall, I am not disappointed with this figure. If not for the not so cheap price tag, the overall build and aesthetics of the figure is very much appreciated. The complexity of its articulation is a dual-edged sword concept for me, as I was not familiar with any action figure articulation outside to that of any bipedal humanoid types, such as the Marvel Legends line characters or any of the humans from this Final Fantasy VII Remake Player Xiii line. So the articulation can either be a plus or negative, and I've said that because as I was messing around with it before I make this video, I was having a hard time posing him because of how new and complex he was to me, especially in the wrist area where the joints couldn't hold Red's weight even in all fours, until I found out the trick to face the joints on the sides so it doesn't keep on bending. But I guess that's just a minor nitpick. And the lack of accessories, that is another negative point for this figure. For its price, having no accessories is one big nah. Not really sure if the Advent Children version has any, but this one doesn't. So if you've missed out on the Advent Children version and is still deciding on whether or not to get this Remake Red 13, I'd say go and get it, considering if you have the budget. But if Player Xiii is your line, then the budget really wouldn't be a problem for you. Overall, still a very recommended purchase if you are a Red 13 fan or generally an FF7 Remake Player Xiii fan. Anyway, thanks for watching, and if you like watching some Player Xiii action figure reviews and other stuff, please do like and subscribe, and as always, I'll see you in the next video.